We're back with the FMS Blazer, and it's had a bit of work done, and I'm quite interested to show you what I've been up to because you may not have seen it before. Let's do it. So where we left the Blazer last time, it's a great out-of-the-box crawler with some issues, a little bit of body roll, a little bit of torque twist, a bit of an incomplete lighting system, but still quite serviceable, wonderful radio, and reasonable handling, good trail manners, and overall I quite liked it. Now, I've got one main modification I want to show you guys today, but I also will tell you I've done a few other things. So let's get to it. First of all, I think the most important thing I've done to make this thing better is that I've put these plates. They're INJORA plates, they're not the FMS plates. I've had some trouble getting FMS stuff recently, and we'll cover that in a minute. But I've got these plates that help protect the diffs, particularly these shifters. Now, unfortunately, the shifters are still kind of bare and out there, but the plate loses you a little bit of clearance under the diff, which should help protect it somewhat. I don't like this design. I wish this plate was across more, and this might actually be a good candidate for 3D printing, designing, or even just making your own out of tin or something, because it's only 2 bolts to connect these things, right? And really, I'd really like to see this bash plate go across over the actuators for both the diff locks, because it is a weakness of this design. Now, I did buy all metal drive shafts, but I've decided that because these are metal, they're very nicely made, they're solid. The plastic ones are actually quite strong, and I've decided, you know what, I'm not going to change them until they break. And it's possible they'll never break unless I was on some big snappy brushless system, and I'm not. Speaking of power, I wanted a bit less speed for crawling, and I wanted a bit stronger of a drag brake. Now, I could have done what all the cool kids are doing and ripped out the whole radio system and stuck a fusion in, but I didn't want to do that because I like the radio system. John Robert Holmes has some wonderful options, and for this, a good motor might be the 45-turn TorqueMaster Expert. That would be one I'd recommend. That's compatible with this ESC all-in-one. But I went a different way. I stuck in a 560, so I went even longer. You might remember the stock motor was a 21-turn 550. A 21-turn 550 is not the same as a 21-turn 540. A 21-turn 550 is more like a, I'd say a 35-turn 540. So going longer again, we've gone from a 21 550 to go longer again. You'd even want less turns to get a similar characteristic, but I wanted slower. I happen to have a 25-turn from one of the big cross RC models I've got back here. And I thought, great, let's try that. We're going to get more drag brake. It's going to be even nicer on power because they just sip at the battery. I just thought, let's try it. The only problem was the motor didn't quite fit against the cross brace between it and the servo. I sat down and designed a replacement arm that does the exact same thing, same bolt holes, but it gives you, 6 more millimeters of clearance, which fits the 560 with the wires. So I'll put a link to that in the description where you can download it. It's free of charge as usual. And now it all fits. Since we're upside down here, the only other thing to mention is we've changed the tires. I've gone with the Proline Super Swamper SX. I'll put everything I've done here in the description, okay? But they also have the INJORA 2-stage foams. Now I know anti-foams are all the rage at the moment, and I even have several designs I haven't released to you guys yet. I've got one that's going to go onto one of my comp rigs inside a set of trenches, and I just tested them last comp in the Hyraxes. They're good. This will all be free of charge, but today I knew what I wanted for this car, and I wanted that kind of go flat, kind of fat tire look where it's on the ground. So I've gone with the 2-stage, the blue inners and the white outers from INJORA. Again, it'll all be linked below. I like that because there's just a little bit of tire before any foam is touched, which means you get that nice fat flat look when it's on the workbench. I like that, and when it's driving too. It just looks like the tires are aired down. I've paired them with some all-metal beadlock wheels with a very similar look to the stock shiny bling bling ones, but it's added some weight. Now, adding weight was necessary because this brings me to my main mod, which is the shocks. Here, I'll get them, they're on another truck here. Now, I had these custom made from Pricey's Custom Crawlers, as it says on the side there. I actually did an order with Pricey a while ago. He doesn't do any kind of influencer deals. He does the same price for everyone. The price is the price. And I like that because I got him to do them for this, and he said they'll be very similar to, I've lost it. He said they'll be the same as the VS410. So that's fine, just with a slight difference in spring. We're going to talk about it in a sec. The reason this G-Made R1 clone is sitting here is that this was another one in my order. You'll see the thing's sitting quite low, and on long shocks it would have sat a bit higher. The beauty of Pricey's shocks is it lets you have compression, but it also, watch this, it also gives you a huge amount of travel. All the tyres are on the ground here. It just gives you a ridiculous amount of travel. He's got two springs. He's got two springs in here. So when the shocks need to reach down, they can. But then when they're already on the ground, the thing sits nice and low, and it can even press up a little. Like there's some movement there, but most of the travel in the shocks is for when a tyre needs to drop and the travel is just there. Now these are quite extreme. These are very long, but they're for this kind of truck. This is a competition truck that I've been experimenting with, which is why it's a bit hodgepodge. But this is part of our tough truck class in our comps. We'll come back to this later on in the year. I've got a bit more to tell you about that. But today we're talking about shocks, and I'm gonna, you know what, I'll lift the lid and show you. But first note how much lower the thing's sitting. On the stock shocks it used to sit, I would say, something like that. You know, it's a very familiar look, right? But now we're sitting nice and low. And we still have beautiful, beautiful reach. All the wheels are on the ground here, take my word for it, they are. And you'll see the shocks just reach where they need to, and everything stays flat. It's a beautiful system. Before I lift the lid, I'll just say I've also added a light bar, and I've added it on a spare channel here. So I can flick through what the channel is, and just a cheap antenna. Yes, I drilled a couple of holes in the pretty bumper, but I like it. And I like it this way because we don't need to add any wiring to the body. And lastly, there's now an interior. I've been trying to buy from FMS for a while. It's even gotten to the point where they've sent me credits to buy from their website, and stuff just isn't working. I'm in Australia, it's not working too well. I ended up giving up, and I've purchased, no, I didn't purchase, I already had it, but I bought this previously. This is an RGT Rescuer interior that I cut to fit with a driver and a rear view mirror. So that's all inside and working, that's great. I did need to cut out the sides to make it fit, but it fits nicely. No other change was needed. The body is stock standard, and I like it like that. The difference is actually underneath. So we've got the, here, this way. We've got the light. I trimmed a little bit so that there's a place for the wire to fit. It goes all the way back and into channel, did I do 10? Yeah, I did 10. And channel 10, among numerous others, is a free button press. So you can cycle through on, off, and then fading on and off, because it's got its own little light controller. I've gone with the big fat bar. You could use a skinny one, but I thought a fat one looked kind of right on this kind of car. So that's what I've done. 3.95 kilos without battery. It'll be something like 350, 400 grams more than stock. Right, let's hit the rocks. Okay, first of all, let's have a look at the speed difference of this motor. It should actually be a bit slower. And it is. This is second gear. So I haven't hit it with a speed check, but it's definitely slower, and I'm happy with that. First gear. Look at that. So that's what we want. Now while we're here, hit the button. There we go. So now we've got our light on. There. Right, so here we are with the new motor. We're locked, we're in first gear, and let's do it. Now these are the G8 compound, not the Predator compound, and they're also some of my older tyres. These are probably 5 years old at this point. Older as far as what we have on the channel goes. Now, unlocking the rear would be probably worthwhile doing here, but I'm not going to. Let's see what happens. I actually want to keep traction because rolling is a distinct possibility. I think it would have rolled already. That was skin of its teeth. Look, it did it. The suspension's an interesting change, isn't it? Let's just see that again. I'll be looking for how the suspension changes the ride. See how it drops now? The wheel drops when it needs to, but our center of gravity is just so much lower. See, now I can get reach with that front left. I was trying to walk it up onto the rock and it just worked, and it didn't before. When you order from Pricey, he'll ask you what the car is. He'll also ask you how heavy your axles are. Oh, I paused to talk then. We'll just pop it back there. He'll also ask you how heavy your axles are, because that determines one of the spring firmnesses inside the shock, and that's the one that lets it drop down. So I'm going to unlock the rear. I might even use dig at this point. Lock that rear again. And there you go. So that's going to help us get around. And there we go. Anyway, we've done it twice. That's problem one. Into problem two. I'm quite happy with this little bumper. I think the chunky light bar looks good, but maybe a more period correct thing would be spotties, if anything. I experimented with, oh look, okay, so there's your money shot for these shocks. In fact, I might even take a photo. I experimented with a roof rack and putting lights up on that, but ultimately I decided just to leave that unmolested. We'll just leave the roof rack as it is. Now, problem three very likely can't be just done straight up like this. We probably need to come from an angle, but we're testing these shocks out. Let's give it a go. Oh, even G8 compound is quite impressive here. I don't think we'll have the clearance, but we certainly have potential. Now there's a thing you can do here with dig. Let me just, all right. So what you can do with dig is lock the rear now, load up a front tire and then pop it out of dig. And it'll give you traction that you couldn't get before. Perfect. Okay, into problem four. So both diffs are locked and we're in low gear. Everything's default. Steering servo did fade in our first test, but honestly, it's got plenty of go. It's really not too bad. Now, the bumper is bending. If it was metal, it just would have banged on the rock and not allowed any progress, so I suppose bending is acceptable. Oh, wow. So this suspension does stuff that the old one just couldn't. We get reach now that we couldn't get before. I'm very happy about that. I was inclined to give that speed, but I didn't. I thought, let's just see how it goes first. It's close. Not bad, not bad. Gee, it wants to hang on, doesn't it? I'll just pick it up from back here. And this time we'll actually give it that speed that I denied it, once we get past this bit. So that strong servo is fading a shade now, but we're also giving it a pretty hard run here. Oh yeah, that's right, we're to, there we go, all right. Jeez. All right, I think 4 is still a bit much for it. Let's just get it in the perfect spot and see, can it still be done? Yeah, it doesn't have the reach, that's okay. Into problem 5. Not bad, not bad. Happy so far. Now that bumper's already catching, so we've got to pick it up somehow if we can. This is the cost of having a scale look for this kind of truck. The light bar's already been banged up a bit. I used thread lock when I installed it, but this kind of thing happens. Right, change cameras. Right, continuing. Even though these tyres are old, the combination of weight from the wheels, dual foams from INJORA, which are honestly very good, and these tyres, which were always quite good, they're favourites at comps, just helps this thing walk, doesn't it? And lastly, good old problem 6. Bumper's already copping a hiding, there we go. Now this pile of rocks tends to change over time a little, but this part of it is always a challenge. And the idea here is to test how does it walk through the big holes. Well, Pricey's suspension took care of that. Now how well does it set up for getting over the top here? We're actually not where I want to be, that's better. Now we could use that dig trick again, but it won't be enough, I suspect. What's happening here? Okay, so we load up that tire, then pop out a dig, but I unloaded by steering. The problem is that plate over the center skid is, there we go. No, we didn't have the steering. It's that plate over the skid is what's getting in the way. Come on. Yeah, I tried it twice. I don't think we're getting out. Yuck. We'll just give it one last little try. That's arguably a more favourable position, but the main problem remains. It can't pop over, but that's okay. So where does that leave us with this truck? Well, honestly, the fact it could even do 4 out of 6 problems is quite impressive. It's better than it was. I'm very happy with it. I think it looks quite good. Yeah, we'll turn that off. I think it looks quite good. I'm quite happy with the changes I've made. This bumper was never going to be great for extreme crawling, and what we just put it through was more than really it's designed for. These shocks and tyres and wheels together have added up to something that is grossly more capable. It's just so much more capable than it was. I can't help but be happy with this. Now, installation took a little bit of thinking because I had to use some spacers to fit these more narrow ball ends in the tops there, but it was pretty straightforward, honestly. Again, you can download my spacer to fit a 560 if you want to stick that in. It just sips at the power, and this whole thing has been done on a 450 milliamp hour 3S battery. Like, it's a legitimately tiny little battery in it. I'll pop it out and show you. So this thing just powered all the attempts, and it still would be above storage, just probably, but still above storage. These bigger motors, it's not intuitive, but they draw less current, less max current. It's a heavier armature, so you get less snappy acceleration that a shorter motor will give you, but the torque is just gobs and gobs of torque. For this kind of car, this kind of build, it's just a nice, well-balanced, nicely riding trail build. The main characteristic of Pricey's shocks is that you get the nice low ride, so it's kind of like a hybrid of droop and long travel suspension. You still have some suspension, but that's achieved by like little short shocks, little short springs inside the shock body. The longer ones that give you that extra travel. Now you can go even longer, and this is something that Pricey's written about on his Facebook page. You can go really quite long travel with shocks. As long as your body is sitting nice and low, most of the time it actually still works out quite well. People come a cropper with long travel shocks when it ends up like sticking the body up really high in like a silly resting position or even higher. So your center of gravity is all messed up and it's not good. So having it sit down like this, beautiful. Great job, Pricey. So I've got parts, everything that I've just done here, it's in the description. Of course, you don't need to use the INJORA plates if you don't want. You don't need to use the RGT Rescuer interior if you don't want. If you're in America, you can buy from FMS and you'll be absolutely fine. But I'll still put the links to what I've got as well, so that if you're watching from anywhere else in the world, g'day Aussies, this will be the one to go with in Australia, I think. But yeah, look, I'm very happy, and this was partly made possible by my wonderful, handsome and intelligent channel supporters, RC-TNT Scratch Build members right here. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you to all my channel members. There are quite a few of you now, and you're all chipping just a little bit to help me keep this machine running, which means I can keep bringing interesting stuff to you. I've got some really good stuff coming this year. I'm very excited about it. Coming soon, we've got my new crawler chassis that I've just completed, and we also have the last of the, wherever it is, the last of the short course trucks. It's here somewhere. We've just got one more to do, and then we're done. We can do the big comparison. There'll be some diggers as well, some more small stuff coming, and some more interesting stuff from a couple of my favorite companies. I'm looking forward to joining you then. Throw me a like. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. It doesn't really make any difference to you because the algo will show you whatever it wants, but it makes a difference to me because manufacturers can say, oh, the numbers are bigger, must be a bigger channel. And that helps me out, so thank you guys. Throw me a like, thank you so much for your time, and I'll catch you next time on RC-TNT. Cheers.